The Illusion Seller. Joao walked through the city streets with a wooden box in his hands, his worn-out hat thrown back and his distant gaze. He was a traveling illusion seller, offering dreams and hopes to those in need. The scorching summer sun beat down on his skin, but Joao hardly noticed, absorbed in his thoughts. He wondered if he would be able to sustain his business, as his supplier was becoming increasingly expensive and the department store owner, Mr. Silva, had started to create obstacles for him. Joao stopped at his next spot, wishing for a moment of peace. He opened the lid of the box and revealed his merchandise. A couple approached and asked how much a dream cost. Joao replied with a friendly smile, but his mind was elsewhere. He realized that Mr. Silva was opening a bigger and more modern department store in town, and he knew that meant an even greater increase in his suppliers' prices. The competition would be even tougher now, and Joao wondered if he would be able to keep his business running. Customers slowly began to disappear, and Joao started to notice the decline in his sales. He tried to navigate the situation, but Mr. Silva's obstacles seemed insurmountable. Joao began to lose confidence in himself, and his dreams and hopes seemed to be fading before his eyes. Joao started to feel lonely and vulnerable. He wondered if the dream business was just an illusion, something that could never be achieved. But he knew he had to keep going, for his customers and for himself. Joao closed the lid of the box and carried it once again. He looked towards the horizon, knowing that the path ahead would not be easy. But he was determined to fight, to continue offering his dreams and hopes to those in need. Joao placed the worn-out hat on his head, lifted the box, and continued his journey. Joao woke up early that morning, feeling tense and worried. He knew something was wrong, but he couldn't pinpoint exactly what it was. When he arrived at his stall, he noticed that the street was emptier than usual. It was as if people had changed direction to avoid passing by. That's when he saw Silva, the owner of the department store across the street, watching him with a cold and calculating gaze. Joao knew at that moment that he was in trouble. Throughout the day, Joao watched in despair as customers walked past his stall without giving him a second glance. He tried to strike up conversations with a few people, but they seemed uninterested in his dreams and hopes. Finally, as the sun began to set, Joao counted the money in his cash register and realized that he had made less than half of what he usually made on a normal day. He knew he had a problem and needed to solve it quickly. As he walked home, Joao noticed that Silva had put up a giant poster in front of his store, promoting a massive clearance sale. It was obvious that he was trying to lure all of Joao's customers away and bring them to his own store. Joao felt powerless and desperate. He knew that if the situation continued like this, he wouldn't be able to pay the rent for his stall much longer. He needed a solution, but he couldn't think of anything. That night, Joao could barely sleep. He stayed awake for hours, trying to come up with a way to solve his problems. Finally, in the middle of the night, he had an idea. It was risky, but it could be his only chance to save his business. Joao grabbed a piece of paper and started writing a detailed plan. He knew he would have to work hard and take many risks, but he was willing to do whatever it took to keep his stall open. Joao walked through the city streets with the weight of the obstacles created by Mr. Silva crushing his shoulders. Each step felt heavier than the previous one, and his hopes were worn out. Yet, even amidst the darkness threatening to engulf him, a small spark of determination shone in his eyes. It was during a conversation with his longtime friend, Paulo, that Joao had an epiphany. Sitting on a bench in the city park, watching carefree children playing, Paulo suggested that Joao look for a way to reinvent himself.
You have a gift for selling illusions, my friend.
Paulo said with a glimmer of optimism in his eyes.
But perhaps it's time to present them in a different way.
Paulo's words echoed in Joao's mind like a ray of light amidst the darkness. It was true, he had always sold illusions, dreams, and hopes, but now it was time to give new meaning to his words. João spent days immersed in psychology books, studying motivation, resilience, and overcoming challenges. He engaged in conversations with the people in the city, listening to their stories, their fears, and their deepest desires. And so, with a glimmer of enthusiasm in his eyes, João began to reinvent himself. He created a new approach to his sales, combining his knowledge of psychology with the art of selling illusions. Instead of just offering objects, he offered the hope of a better life, the motivation to achieve dreams, and the confidence to face challenges. People in the city became curious about João's new approach. He organized small lectures in public squares, sharing inspiring stories and offering practical advice to transform everyday life. His voice echoed throughout the city, attracting people who sought a spark of hope amidst their own struggles. Mr. Silva, observing from afar, felt threatened by João's new path. He knew his old tactics wouldn't be enough to stop this transformation. Determined to crush João's hopes once and for all, Mr. Silva increased his efforts to sabotage João's business. He spread false rumors, hired people to protest against João's lectures, and even tried to convince some loyal customers to abandon him. However, João was not shaken by Mr. Silva's tricks. He was more determined than ever to continue spreading his transformative illusions. With every obstacle that arose, João found a creative way to overcome it. He relied on the support of friends and neighbors who believed in his message and witnessed the difference he made in people's lives. As the battles between João and Mr. Silva intensified, the city became divided. Some remained loyal to the illusion seller, inspired by his words and touched by the positivity he brought. Others succumbed to Mr. Silva's attacks, giving in to the distrust and fear he tried to spread. However, João refused to be discouraged by adversity. He continued to reinvent himself, finding new ways to reach people and share his transformative illusions. He adapted his lectures and created inspiring materials that people could take with them, keeping the flame of hope alive even after he left. Every day, more and more people joined João. His message of overcoming and belief in human potential began to resonate beyond the borders of the small town. His lectures attracted a diverse audience, all thirsty for a positive change in their lives. João's message surpassed barriers and prejudices, uniting people in search of a better life. João was at the peak of his reinvention. His business was recovering, and his inspiring presence had a profound impact on the community. Mr. Silva, despite his efforts, began to realize that his cruel tactics couldn't compete with the strength of hope and determination embodied by João. However, the climax of the story was approaching, when João would face his greatest trial. But he wouldn't be alone. With the support of friends, neighbors, and all the people who found inspiration in his transformative illusions, João was ready to bounce back and show the world that believing in oneself and possibilities can overcome any obstacle. João found himself at a crossroads in life. Everything seemed lost. His business was in ruins, his dreams seemed to fade away, and the shadow of despair loomed over his weary mind. Sitting in his modest room, staring at the worn-out wall, João battled a storm of conflicting emotions. The feeling of failure was overwhelming. Each obstacle created by Mr. Silva seemed more insurmountable than the last. João wondered if he should simply abandon his illusions and surrender to the gray and barren world that life was offering him. The voice of defeat whispered in his ear, trying to persuade him to give up. However, amidst the darkness that seemed to engulf him, a spark of hope still glowed in his heart. Remembering the words of encouragement from his friends and neighbors, João began to recall the moments when his illusions brought joy and inspiration to the people of the city. An epiphany emerged in João's mind. He realized that his illusions were not just products he sold, but a source of comfort and motivation for those who sought them. He understood that his true strength lay in the ability to awaken in others the belief that life could be better. With a renewed fire within him, João rose from his bed and made a brave decision. He would not give up. Instead, he would face Mr. Silva and all the challenges that came his way. With determination in his eyes and a smile on his face, he began to chart a plan to reopen his illusion business in a grand and triumphant manner. João knew it wouldn't be easy. He would have to overcome the barriers imposed by Mr. Silva, find new customers, and regain the trust of those who had been driven away. But he was willing to risk everything, to put his courage to the test. Day after day, João worked tirelessly, transforming his small stall into an oasis of hope. He refined his illusions, created new products, and promoted his business throughout the city. The news began to spread, and gradually, people rediscovered the magic that João had to offer. Finally, the day of the grand reopening arrived. João proudly opened the doors of his stall, showcasing his enhanced illusions and offering a warm smile to all who approached. People started to gather, curious and enchanted by what he had to offer. As the sun set on the horizon, João's stall shimmered with a magical aura. The city was enveloped in an atmosphere of excitement and rediscovery. People experienced João's illusions, feeling the flame of hope reignite within them. From afar, Mr. Silva observed the scene and felt threatened by João's business resurgence. He realized he had underestimated the power of illusions and the indomitable spirit of the street vendor. Determined not to be surpassed, he prepared for one final confrontation. Amidst the applause and the sharing of experiences by customers, João sensed a looming presence. He turned around and met the cold gaze of Mr. Silva, approaching with a defiant expression. In the midst of the commotion and anticipation, the two faced each other. João, with his heart full of faith, and Mr. Silva, with his unyielding greed. The battle was not just for business but also for the soul of the city. Sharp words were exchanged, and petty attempts to undermine each other were made. But João stood firm, exuding confidence and kindness in his responses. He would not let Mr. Silva's darkness extinguish the light shining in his heart. And then, in a moment of greatness, João made an unexpected offer to Mr. Silva. He proposed a partnership where both could thrive without causing harm to each other. Surprised, Mr. Silva hesitated for a moment, but the seed of redemption was planted within him. After a moment of reflection, Mr. Silva agreed. He realized that the power of João's illusions could be a positive force for the city and for himself. Together, they would combine their knowledge and resources, ushering in a new era of prosperity and hope. And so, amidst settled dust and curious gazes, João and Mr. Silva shook hands, sealing their truce and a new partnership. The city witnessed the transformation, shifting from a place of rivalry to a space where collaboration and mutual growth could flourish. On that night, João's stall remained open until late, filled with laughter, shared stories, and the glow of fulfilled illusions. The entire city felt the magic of a second chance, a renewed belief that life could be filled with wonders and possibilities. And as João observed the success of his business, he knew that true triumph lay not only in his financial recovery but in his ability to restore faith in humanity and reignite the flame of hope in hearts that had been touched by his illusions. And so, João, the illusion vendor, became a living symbol of resilience and inner strength. His journey was far from over, but he knew he had found his true purpose. He would continue to spread his illusions throughout the city, inspiring people to dream and believe in a better future. As the night turned into dawn, João remained by his stall, gazing at the horizon with gratitude and determination. He knew the path ahead would be challenging, but he was prepared to face any obstacle that came his way. The entire city had witnessed the resurrection of João, the illusion vendor, and his story began to spread like a whisper of hope. People eagerly shared their experiences, attracting even more customers to João's stall. Deep in his soul, Joao knew that the climax of his journey was not just the victory over Mr. Silva but the rediscovery of his own inner power. He had overcome his fears and uncertainties, finding the courage to move forward and confront challenges head-on. Joao, the illusion vendor, emerged from the darkness and found his inner light, illuminating the path not only for himself but also for those who crossed his path. Now, he was ready to embrace the next chapter of his journey, eager to continue weaving stories of hope and magic. And like the bright sun rising on the horizon, Joao knew that regardless of the challenges the future held, he would be prepared to face them with the same resilience and determination that had brought him this far. For now, he understood that the true magic lay in believing in oneself and sharing that belief with the world. The sun shone brightly in the small town as Joao put his final move into action to revive his illusion-selling business. With determination in his eyes and his heart pulsating with hope, he reopened his stall in a strategic location near the central square. People began to gather around, curious to discover what Joao had prepared. Joao's skilled hands distributed smiles along with the talismans and self-help books that now composed his offering. He strove to convey confidence and convince his customers that those illusions could change their lives. Meanwhile, Mr. Silva observed the scene with disdain from his department store. He was convinced that Joao was destined to fail and had no fear of showing his contempt. But Joao had something that Mr. Silva would never understand: the strength of a united community. Joao's friends and neighbors gathered around his stall, buying his products and encouraging others to do the same. They believed in the power of Joao's illusions, in the sparks of hope they could ignite in people's hearts. News of Joao's business revitalization quickly spread throughout the town. People of all ages and social classes began to gather in the central square, drawn by the aura of positivity radiating from Joao. Self-help books flew off the shelves, and talismans sold out within minutes. As Joao smiled at each customer, he felt the weight of the struggle being lifted. Success gave him new energy, a renewed determination to face the challenges that still lay ahead. He knew that this was just the beginning of his journey to transform lives through his illusions. While Mr. Silva observed the growing crowd around Joao, his expression of disdain began to transform into envy. He realized that despite all his money and influence, he didn't have the power to touch people's hearts like Joao did. Money wasn't everything. At the peak of the afternoon, Joao raised his hands and thanked the crowd for believing in his illusions, for giving his dreams a second chance. He shared inspiring stories of people who had found strength and transformation through his illusions. Applause echoed through the square as people bid farewell to Joao with gratitude and hope in their eyes. The illusion vendor had won the heart of the city, and his success was a living testimony that belief in oneself and the magic of illusions could overcome any obstacle. As the sun set, Joao packed up his stall with a sense of gratitude and satisfaction. He looked up at the dark blue sky dotted with stars, remembering the moment when he had almost given up. Now, he felt revitalized and more confident than ever. As he walked through the streets of the town, Joao encountered his friends and neighbors, who greeted him with warm hugs and words of pride. They knew that this victory belonged not only to Joao but to the entire community that had rallied around his dream. From afar, Mr. Silva watched the scene with a gloomy expression. He felt defeated in the face of Joao's strength and resilience, something that money could never buy. That day had shown him that true wealth lay in self-belief and generosity of spirit. As Joao faded into the night, the city was enveloped in a climate of hope and renewal. The story of Joao, the illusion vendor, would be told for generations, inspiring others to pursue their own dreams. In the heart of the city, the empty stall remained as a symbol of a battle won, but also as a reminder that life is filled with ups and downs, challenges, and opportunities to dream. And so, on that night, the city fell asleep with an aura of magic in the air, knowing that even in the uncertainties of life, Joao's illusions would continue to spread light and hope, proving that sometimes believing in what seems impossible is necessary to achieve the extraordinary. The city was bathed in the golden light of dusk as Joao stood before an eager crowd. All eyes were fixed on him, curious to hear his final words. Those who once doubted him were now present, witnessing the triumph of his determination. With a voice choked with emotion, Joao began to speak, his words echoing through the air like a melody of hope. He recounted his arduous journey, from days of uncertainty and challenges to the present moment of glory. Each sentence was like a thread weaving the tapestry of his story, intertwining the pains and victories. "Friends and neighbors," he said, with a smile on his lips, "when I faced defeat, you reminded me of the strength we carry within us. You believed in my illusions, in the possibilities I sold, and today you are here, witnessing the power of perseverance." The crowd applauded, filled with gratitude and admiration. They had witnessed the transformation of an ordinary man into a symbol of courage and overcoming. Tears of joy welled up in the eyes of many, as each of them found inspiration in Joao's journey. Joao continued, "We should never underestimate the value of the illusions we create in our hearts. They are the fuel for our dreams, the force that propels us beyond adversity. My friends, always remember that it is not the obstacles that define our destinies, but how we choose to face them." The air was filled with emotion as everyone absorbed those wise words. Joao had touched the souls of those people, awakening in them an unwavering belief that they could overcome any challenge. Finally, Joao concluded, "I thank each and every one of you for standing by my side, for supporting me when I needed it most. Our city is a place where dreams are not only sold but nurtured and realized. Together, we are capable of achieving great feats." The square filled with deafening applause as people approached Joao, embracing him with gratitude and respect. He had become a beacon of hope, a living symbol that determination can conquer even the darkest of battles. And so, the story of Joao, the illusion vendor, became a legend in that small town. Future generations would hear about the man who never gave up, who turned adversity into opportunity and proved that dreams can come true. As the night fell, Joao gazed at the horizon, filled with gratitude and deep satisfaction. He knew his journey didn't end there. His success would inspire others to pursue their own dreams, to believe in the illusions that propelled them forward. With one last look at the crowd surrounding him, Joao bid farewell with a wave of his hand. The city was now filled with renewed energy, a newfound confidence spreading like fire in the veins of every resident. As Joao walked away, he felt in his heart the gratitude and joy of having overcome all the obstacles that came his way. He knew the path ahead would still be challenging, but he was prepared to face whatever adversity the future brought. The story of Joao, the illusion vendor, would remain alive in the minds and hearts of that town. And as the sun set on the horizon, the light of hope shone brighter than ever. And so, Joao continued his journey, carrying with him the message that one should never underestimate the power of illusions, for they are what drive us to pursue our boldest dreams. His story became an eternal reminder that even in the darkest moments, the light of hope can prevail. And as the night embraced the city, Joao moved forward, guided by the burning flame of determination. For he knew that regardless of what the future held, he would always be the illusion vendor, the guardian of dreams, bringing hope to all who crossed his path. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like. See you in the next video.